we are going to start with a space of 100 by 100. So I'm going to draw a plane, open up the attribute editor here, look at its plane construction node here, the polyplane 1. In fact, I'm even just going to name it floor over here, and you see that automatically names some of the nodes. The first node is called the transform node. This is what tracks its position, rotation, and scale, among other things. Then we've got a shape node that can control some of the mesh stuff. And then usually that third node in is what's called the construction history node. And this is what keeps track of the different parameters of the shape. So instead of 1 by 1, we're going to go out to 100 by 100. I'll leave the subdivisions at 10 by 10. So this gives us a good starting point for our scale. Again, Maya units, by default, I believe they're set to be in like centimeters or meters, but as long as we all keep to the same scale, it doesn't really matter. You can go into the preferences and change the units. So let me show you how this works. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this scene. Just wanting to open my other screen. And in this scene, it's automatically, I'm double checking again, super important to make sure I'm in the right project. I'm in this alien office project in the scenes folder. I'm going to save this scene as main, okay? Main, and it will give me the continue on the student version, and I've got this scene. So now I want to go create a new scene, and this one I'm going to create a 10 by 10 cube. So instead of just clicking the cube, I'm actually going to go to create polygon primitives, and I'm going to click the options next to the cube, which I'm pretty sure if I close this, if I double click this on the panel, it does the same thing. All right, so my default's a little different, so I want to set this up so it's 10 by 10, and then I'm even going to have my divisions as 10 as well. And this should give me a nice cube showing me the scale in which I want to work on my scene. So I'll hit create, and here is the scale of my scene to start off with. And I'm going to go ahead and just save this, as simple as it can be. Just file, save scene, or save as. Either one will do the same thing when you have an unsaved scene you're currently working in. So mine's going to be named Chris. I'm going to save the scene as, hit continue on my student version. And now I have two separate scenes. Okay, so let's make a reference. First thing to do is, now that I have this separate smaller scene saved, I'm going to go back and open my original main scene. Okay, I'm going to open it up. And now we're going to create what's called a reference. Referencing scenes is the term in Maya that allows you to do this. And when it goes over to File, there's under References, there's Create Reference and the Reference Editor. So I could open this Reference Editor, which gives me this window with icons that kind of has everything you can do with references in it. But I don't really need to work with this. There's a lot of detail here I don't really care about and need to worry about yet. Also the same thing with under Create Reference with this options dialog box. There's some options and things, but for what we need to do, we can just do everything as the defaults are. So if I go to File, I can just do Create Reference right here. And when I click Create Reference, it will open up this reference dialog box, which goes right to my scenes again. And I'm trying to reference a scene. So I'll reference this scene named Chris, reference it. But as you can see, I now have that cube in this scene. All right, now there's some interesting things going on here. First of all, if we look at our outliner, which like I said, I always keep open. It's a very, very powerful tool that you'll kind of want to keep an eye on. Helps you understand what's in your scene and helps you understand what you can name and things. So there's a couple different things here that got added. There's my Chris Cube 1 here, and because it's a referenced object, it's got this little diamond next to it, all right? And then down here, I have basically I have my reference node, which is keeping track of the reference itself. So right now, as you can see, okay, I have this reference in here. I have this, ready to go. Now, ideally, there's certain times where we'll have to, but the whole point of this is we don't want to have to open up the main file and make changes. We want you to be able to edit your individual referenced file and have that update in the main file. So that's the main workflow. I'll show you how that works. So now that I've created this reference, I'm going to go ahead and save this scene. And this is where I'm going to have to hit continue for each file that's associated. So I'll have to hit it once for the actual file and once for the reference. So now that I have that saved in, as a reference. Now I can go back and open the original Chris scene, continue, and here's my cube. So now I want to make changes to this awesome cube. Let's say I want to, first off, I'm going to hit the 2 key so I can see its smoothing and its kind of not smooth lattice around it. And now I'm going to open up the modeling toolkit. I'm going to choose face, and I'm going to make sure soft selection is on. And I can see that right now my soft selection is set to 5 with my cube at 10, meaning that it's going to take up about half of the space. So it's taking up like a whole side here, which is fine. I'll leave it at that. And I'm just going to select a face in the middle of this and then use the move tool and just bulge it out a little bit here. And then maybe I'll select a face on the top, bulge it out a bit here. Again, using smoothing and soft selection, I'm able to quickly get these nice organic shapes. Bulge out here. All right, maybe I'll go back to object mode, and then I'll hit the 3 key so I can actually just see my nice, weird, bulgy, smoothed cube here. All right, so now not only is it bulgy, but it's also got these nice smoothed edges and everything. And then it's also going to be sitting like underneath the floor. So I'm going to move it up. Now, this is an example where I might want to move it up an exact amount. I could use the move tool and just kind of eye it, try and put it right there, which usually in 3D is fine. Usually if it looks good, it is good, but sometimes it's nice to be precise. So with the object selected, I can either do this in the channel editor, which usually shows me like the most used animated tools, or I can go to the attribute editor and find the right node, which in this case would be the very first node on the left side that shows me these same transform tools. Entering in either of these spots will do the same thing, but I'm just going to use the channel box. And I want to translate. Now, if I didn't know which way was which, X, Y, or Z, you can always take the move tool and just nudge it a little bit and see. So you can see that's X, that's Z, and then up and down is going to be Y. So Maya is a Y up coordinate space. And I'll hit undo, Command Z a couple times to get these all to zeros. And now knowing that this is a 10 by 10 cube, I want to move it up on the Y 5 units, and that will stick it right on the grid. All right, so now I've made these edits to my area, and now I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I'm going to File, Save Scene, and hit Continue, saved it. Now, if I go to Open Scene, open that main scene, hit Continue twice, once for the scene, once for the reference, and voila, check it out. Those edits have automatically been applied to this reference scene. Pretty cool, right? So now this thing is sitting up on it. All right, so now the next step is how do we go the other way? Because, for example, if I were to be in the other file and I couldn't see the relationship to any of the other ones, how exactly am I going to know where to move this and stuff? So, you know, you want to do like 90% of your work in your individual file, but there may be certain times where you'll want to open the file up in the main file and make some adjustments. Usually that's going to be for, you know, placement, or if you are kind of playing off of any of the scenes around you and kind of want to see what's going on in there. But there is a way to actually save it the other way. Now, first of all, let me show you what happens if we don't save it the other way. I'm going to go into a 4-up view. I just tapped the space bar to do that. You could also click over here to do that, switch between views. And this is going to give me these orthogonal views. I'm going to zoom out a bit on my top view. Use the move tool and use this little square, which will move in both axes on this 2D view. I'm just going to position this maybe over here. All right, so now this is where this particular scene is going to live, because right at first everyone's just going to be stuck in the middle, and then at some point we'll want to kind of move them around and address this main scene. So as I've moved it over there off of this initial grid, I'm going to, and in fact, maybe we'll also even give it a slight rotation. Maybe we decide we want it to face that way a little bit more. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this. So I'm just going to hit Command S and hit that a couple times. And now it's saved in this main file. But the important thing to remember is this has not updated the other file yet. The other way it works automatically. The other way, if a scene is referenced in, like this has the reference in it, any changes that are saved in the reference itself are going to automatically import when we open this up. There are some exceptions to the rule. Sometimes if, for example, you have animation and you change the name of the object, that'll break a reference. I've found certain instances where just doing translation, just moving something without making any other edits may not work as well, because I think that the referenced object gets its own transform node sometimes. But for the most part, it works that whatever you're working in the original scene will automatically import. But here, when I've saved this, now if I go back into the Chris scene, open scene, Chris, and you can see that those last two edits I made have not been updated in this scene. This is not moved over here, and it's not rotated at all either. So that's really important, that we don't typically want to end up in a situation where we've got edits in the main scene that have not been pushed back to these. You can have plenty of edits in these that you may be iterating on your own and then wait until, okay, now I'm ready to update this into the main scene. You can have as many iterations as you want, as long as the one you go to reference is named a particular way. I'll talk about that in a moment. But let me show you how to actually push this back from the main scene into this, in case you wanted to open the main scene yourself and make some kind of small edits. So now if I go back, open scene again, open main, I'm gonna click not save on this one, and then continue twice on this one. And you can see those edits that I made are indeed still there in here. These didn't go away. It's just that those edits are actually saved in this reference node rather than back to the scene itself. But there is a way to do it. You can open up the reference editor, but there's a faster way that if we select our referenced object and we right click on it from the outliner, there's a reference flyout, which basically allows you to do about everything you can do in the reference editor, just in kind of a quicker way. Does it do the same thing on this? Yeah, it does. All right, so whether you are on, we're gonna be safe and do it on the object itself. This may also work if you just do it on the whole reference. I'm not sure. You might need to select the object within it. I think it'll work if we just do it on the whole reference at once. But this way, we could, in theory, update individual objects rather than the whole thing. I know this will work, so we'll do it this way. Maybe we'll try it the other way afterwards just to see. But what we can do is we can right-click over here, choose reference, and then save edits, all right? If we say, now there's other things you can do in here. You can unload references so they're not referenced anymore. You can unload and then reload them, which is what I found is useful if certain things don't carry over like you thought they would. But if we click on save edits, are we sure we wanna save the reference file? And it's gonna tell us saving reference edits to file. It's telling me in my path, alien office scenes, chris.mb for my binary is not undoable. Sure, I know I want to save it. So it's warning me to save it that file. Then I have to hit continue for the student thing. So now that I've done that save edits, now if I go back and open a scene again, open Chris, I'm going to click not to save on this one because I saved those edits. I shouldn't need to save the main scene itself. Now we open Chris. Now you can see those edits have been pushed to this file. All right, so it's moved over, it's rotated, we've got everything we need. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to try that on the main reference file also. Let's do one more main level, or we'll do one more edit in each way. So, all right, if I decide, cancel this, if I decide that, let's say I want to poke a hole in this thing, I'm going to go back to 1, so I'm only seeing, grab my pen. So I'm only seeing these flat surfaces. I'm going to choose face, and I'm going to turn off soft selection. And now maybe I'll choose the paint selection so I can just undo that a little bit. No, just paint a little bit here. That's close. I'm going to peek around my model and see if I accidentally selected any other things while I was painting. Doesn't look like it. Looks like this is my selection. I'm going to go back to the regular selection and use shift to unselect these two. So I end up with just this, and now I can hit delete and make a hole in my object. And now maybe this isn't, part of my object. Maybe this is, if I were to delete the rest of these faces around here and have an open thing, maybe I go in here and this is my weird little alien cubicle. Maybe I put some materials on the inside or something. So just to point out, there's a lot to be said for making primitives and using them as objects you go inside of as well. So anyway, I'm going to smooth this again. Hit 3. Got this nice smoothed hole. I'll right click, go back to object mode. Got this hole in it now. So if I save this file and then go to File, Open Scene, open up the main scene, should see the hole carry through. There it is. Pointing that way, we see our hole. Go back to this. All right, and now finally we're going to try saving edits, but we're going to use the whole node instead. So I'll take this, and this time maybe we will scale it. Maybe there's a little big, maybe we'll scale it down, just so we can see the option rotated on its quarter a little bit like this. All right, so now I'm going to just try this. I'm not sure if this is going to work without choosing the individual element, but if I just try the actual reference node, that diamond reference, save edits, and it looks like it will. I'll click save, and then I'm even going to save this scene. So remember, I've got this viewport. Now if I go to open Chris again, perfect. It saved it, has it in the right spot, has that rotation. All right, so that is referencing files. It's actually pretty smooth and pretty easy to use.